So, my opinion, if we want to incentivize corporations in America and foreign investment in America to stimulate our economies where we can become industrialized and have capabilities to produce commodity goods, you do that through incentives of win-win negotiations, never antagonization of extortion. When you extort the whole world and you wage an economical war on the whole world and you try to act like a gangster like Alphonse Capone and be like, hey, if y'all global merchants don't want me to toss a rock of tariff into y'all merchant windows, y'all will pay me tribute to my external IRS department as a form of protection from against my tariffs. So it's a loser proposition. This April Fool's month-long holiday escapade of his is nothing but a fool's errand, thinking that you can extort every nation on earth for the love of your greed. It doesn't make sense. It rubs a bad taste on every nation's mouths when they have to sit there and watch this putrid coming out of this great hog of an abomination of greed we call Trumpery. Is delusion when you think you can rape the whole world for the love of greed. It's not an economical theory that I want to support. I think that if you wanted to incentivize nations and American corporations to reinvest in America, you do that through incentives, but never to derogatory extortion rackets of trolling every nation's coffers globally. It's just not a winning recipe when you rub salt in the wounds of everybody and expect them to feel some type of tribute towards that. You're you're acting like you're Caesar, but you're about to get plummeted with daggers from all sides. It's just a losing recipe. So, as economic theory, I think that we should outlaw global tariffs, make it illegal for it to be implemented anywhere in the globe. Tariffs. We should have free commerce. I believe in free capitalism for all nations. I believe that all nations' currencies should have equal purchasing power parity. That no one nation currency is inferior to another nation's currency. So equal purchasing power for all nations' currencies. I'm done with the American world-led system that controls the world economic system after Bretton Woods, after the conclusion of these European wars that led America after World War II to control the world economy by every nation having to buy oil and gasoline with the American currency. It made us into a robber baron nation over the rest of the world, a hegemonic economy over the rest of the world, and we devaluated the third world currencies to make them inferior. Africa, South America, the Middle East, parts of Asia. We basically enslaved Asia to be our sweatshops after World War II. And we made purchasing power parity by devaluating their currencies and giving them inferior third world status perpetually. So I'm not with that. I believe that all nations' currencies are equally sovereign to every other nation on earth. So all nations should have the equal purchasing power parity to their currencies permanently. That not one nation is inferior to another nation. So when it comes to free commerce, I believe in doing away with global taxation. Now, my theory of doing away with global taxation is that there's no more taxation of any nation on earth on their population. And the way I set up my theory is that nations have the right to coin their own sovereign currencies. So nations have the obligations to provide for their populations of their citizen within their countries. They're sovereign citizens. So nations should be able to print money to provide universal free health care to their citizens. Emergency response, whether it be fire, medical, medevacs, police department, whether it be building highways and bridges and roads. And so the government can fund these programs, and also providing for their defense industry, their militaries. Governments can print money debt free to provide these social services for their populations without taxing their populations. And so the government can print money, their own currencies out of thin air, free of debt, to provide these services. And they don't have to tax their citizens. In other words, the government can print the money, their budgets, to fund these safety nets for their citizens, and never have to worry about taxing their citizens. So the government can print it out of thin air, currency, and cancel debt out of thin air to provide for these federal budgets of their, or these sovereign government funds, to provide these services for their population. So I also believe that the private sector, companies, corporations, factories, businesses, small and big, shouldn't be taxed. Zero taxation, whether it be federal or state, zero taxation. And so the businesses can net 100% of their profits. They can net 100% of their profits and never have to pay a penny in tax. Also for the employees, the workforce, they can earn and keep 100% of their earnings. Now, there will have to be price controls to keep hyperinflation, because what this would do, this will stimulate commerce. A lot of people will want to produce commodity goods to be sold liberally in the open markets. So instead of having a cost of hyperinflation due because the flood of money, there will have to be price controls set by the central banks. So the markets will have reasonable pricing to keep the prices of commodity goods from being flooded with people trying to raise their prices because of the flood of money behind goods. So my theory is that the more goods that are produced, the more that people want to buy for affordable goods. And so the more money people earn, the more money they can keep, the more money they can use for their own interests, whether it be buying houses, their cars, buying clothes, putting the kids through college, saving up for rainy days, whatever it be. People now, from the grass level all the way up to the government level, everybody can now function without no taxation. So eliminating taxation universally for nations, they don't have to tax their populations. They can print money out of thin air and cancel debt out of thin air to provide for their federal governmental budgets. Businesses, banks, corporations, small businesses, big businesses, now they can net 100% of their earnings. Laborers, the workforce, now they can keep 100% of their earnings. And so more money to go, more money to have, more money to spend. So that will spawn production. That will spawn industrialism of consuming. And it will stimulate commerce throughout the world. People will be producing more and consuming more. And so the banks, the central banks, in order to keep inflation of the currencies from being, because some bankers will say, well, that will cause currencies to be inferior because they will be flooding the markets with money. Cheap money chasing after limited commodity goods. That's what bankers will say. I would say no, because it's called investment and consumption. And so now, free commerce, liberal economics, now there will be more people consuming and more people producing. So that will raise third world from third world status economically into first world status. So raising regions of our planets of countries that are poor, impoverished countries, now they will get a chance to rise up from poverty. And of course, you have to have responsible recycling and know how to use and be friendly to the environment as we consumed off the planet for commodity productions of raw materials from the planet. We will have to be responsible stewards of how we produce commodity goods and how we recycle and keep the process balanced as far as not plundering and polluting the planet and exerting the planet. We have to have an equilibrium with production, but we'll figure that out, how to keep up with the consumptions of America and the rest of the nation's populations on planet Earth. I believe eventually we will start to expand beyond this planet, and into the Milky Way, and so there'll be more allocated resources as we become a class 2, class 3, class 4, even a class 5 species, when we become advanced with our technologies. But doing away with taxation is getting everybody out your pockets, from the grass level all the way up to the governmental level. And now you're 100% in charge of what you want to use with 100% of what you earn, as far as what you want to buy with it. Whatever you earn, you get to keep 100% of it. So we don't need governments robbing us like we're enslaved when it comes to the currency exchange and our wages, whether it be the labor force all the way up to the governmental levels. There's a vicious cycle of taxation that bears down on everybody unfairly. So by eliminating taxation universally, we'll live in a prosperous, more liberal economic system that will spawn off new evolutions of third world nations rising up their regions from poverty, the living standard. And so I think that the bank's job is to invest. Of course, when you borrow money from the bank, you will have to pay them interest. For anything, you have to invest money and pay the banks with interest, because they are the stewards of stimulating commerce. So they also get to keep and because being a banker is just like any profession, is a trade, a skill, like an artist, a sculptor, any type of discipline of studies have their own discipline that pertains to their industries. And so banks are necessary structure in order for commerce to exist and stimulation of markets. So yes, for people that want to borrow, for businesses, for people that want to start their businesses, yeah, you can borrow money and pay interest to the bank. But now whatever you earn as a business, you get to keep 100% of your earnings, and not a penny of it goes towards taxation. And the same for the banks. If whatever they invest in and they gain interest in, now they get to keep. The bank gets to keep 100% of their earnings. And like I said, the government can provide for their populations by printing their currency out of thin air and canceling their debt out of thin air. So now they can afford to give every citizen free universal health care. They can afford to give them retirement pension plans. They can afford to build highways, bridges, and roads. They can afford to provide emergency response. They can afford to provide defense for their populations when it comes to the defense industry. So now living in a world free of taxation will go a long way to stimulating world liberal commerce. That, I said, will go a long way towards helping third world nations rise up from poverty. Because it's not a trickle down economic system anymore. See, when you're taxed, and it gets to be that you're taxed 50% out of your earnings, it's hard to get by. It's hard to get by for anybody. When you work hard and somebody wants to take a half of what you got for doing nothing, for just dipping their hands in your pockets. And so taxation is a cruel economic tool that needs to be eradicated. And so that's my economical theory. I consider it the wealth of nations and the theory of morality, at least my spin on it.